Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Aedifico Insights podcast. Excited to have my friend Mike Nolan with us today. So Mike's going to give us his history and, it's going to be really interesting. But Mike, welcome to the show.
We'll see how interesting it is. But thank you, Mandy. Good to see you and good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So quick backstory, Mike and I met at NAOP, Night of the Stars, and he then graciously invited me to the Google campus and to see, it was kind of a brand new build out there in Kirkland, and I felt like that was kind of like I hit the big time, like it felt like, okay, tech has moved to Seattle and now I get to see it. So Thank you so much for that all those years ago, and thank you also for being here. So okay, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your career.
Sure. No, I think that those are kind of the years, sort of the highest profile years, my years at Google from 2007 to 2019. Mostly up here in the Pacific Northwest, looking after design and delivery of the Google campus portfolio here in the Pacific Northwest. So Seattle, the Fremont campus, the South Lake Union campus, the Kirkland campus, and the beginnings of the Kirkland, the new one. The name is Kirkland Urban. That campus, I was at the beginning of the acquisition process and the early design of one of the first deliveries. So design, delivery. I did some operations early on. I was the facilities manager for the Pacific Northwest in the early part of my career, which was great. I think that moving from facilities into projects is great because you get real insights into functional, usable buildings. Like, is this a manageable building? Is it a usable building? So you have a real good eye on tactics and how to make the design work for the people who are actually moving through the space. So those were great years, and not that these aren't great years, but the Google years were amazing. We got to deliver amazing spaces. We were asked to innovate. We were asked to kind of move the needle on sustainability, on design, on user experience, everything that you can imagine, kind of at the vanguard of office delivery and office project management, construction, and so on. So obviously it was a formative years of my professional career. In 2019, I left and joined WeWork. I think I look back with that a little bit, kind of, I say that sheepishly. At the time, it seemed like a good decision, and they were the talk of the town for office. I was, I felt like my time at Google had I don't want to say run its course. I could have stayed, but I wanted to kind of maybe do a new adventure. We think about embarking on something new, getting in with the startup, getting in on a company that was really pushing hard on growth. Had I thought a good business model, and had a good message and a good culture, or at least an interesting culture. But so that was in January of 2019, and then kind of it didn't work out, and there were multiple factors involved with that. The company obviously fell on its troubles down the road. Then around the summertime of 2019, end of summer 2019 is when that ended. I kind of looked around a little bit, had a couple chats with some people in the area, but was also content to kind of take some time in that period after, Google, and then after the kind of WeWork thing. And so, I said, all right, well, then all of a sudden you're in the holidays, all of a sudden you're at Thanksgiving, all of a sudden you're at Christmas. And so you're like, okay, this is fine, this is good. Let's just take a little bit of time, take a breather. You've been working for a long time. And then, roll into 2020, you're like, all right, I'm getting resumes out. I'm going to go start knocking on doors. I'm going to go start, banging on doors. I'm going to go start, just really like shaking the network tree and getting as much done as I can. And then all of a sudden, guess what? The industry just gets flipped over on its head in that first quarter of 2019 or 2020, excuse me. So then it was just a bit of piecing things together, and then I landed at 10x Genomics in 2021, I think, and they were really cooking at the time. And then again, things slowed down. The industry slowed down. Once that was, I think the relevance of that is that was my first kind of foot in the water of life sciences. Mm-hmm. Managing real estate for a life sciences company, the technical side, the requirements of a company that multiple different sorts of spaces, different than your traditional tech office, obviously. But life sciences at the time were riding that big wave of COVID. I think every life sciences company out there was doing really well during the COVID years because they were just getting the government contracts. It was just cranking. It was a good industry to be invested in. It was a good industry to be in. Stock prices were way up across the industry, and obviously that bubble burst as well, and we ended up in a bit of a lull around around growth and around, trying to again rationalize that they overhired for the wave, and now they were, doing a lot of rationalization around, what type of growth they needed going forward, and right sizing for what's considered sort of normal business as opposed to this crazy, couple of years of COVID that we had. So it slowed down. Then that role ended, unfortunately. I went to Apple for about a year in Austin, Texas. Then I got connected with another buddy of mine at Biorad, where I am now. He needed a portfolio manager, and I wanted to get out of Austin. I wanted to get back home. Nothing against Austin, nothing against Apple.
Sure.
Those are different conversations, but for the purposes of my career, as we're going over background, I just wanted to get home.
Yeah.
And it was better for me, and Biorad let me work out of the Pacific Northwest to manage their global portfolio, or at least America's APAC, which is what I'm doing. And so that's where I am now. I'm in that role. The next got me the life sciences experience. The network kind of got me the connection, and the job is fine. It's great. I mean, it's a good place to work. It's great people. It's a good mission. All the life sciences, I think you can always say like, hey, it's a good mission anyway. There's always something at the bottom of it all that is that's positive, and that you can kind of feel good about contributing to a mission that is, committed to making people's lives better, in a real tangible way. So that's where I am now. I'm at Biorad. I look after the Americas and the Asia Pac real estate portfolio, and it's going great.
Yeah. Good. Can we circle back to WeWork really quick? I just
Sure.
am curious, what were you feeling at the time? And you said it seemed like, it was a good culture, and, there was a lot of energy around it, that's for sure. But I'm curious, like looking back, what your thoughts are now.
I mean, it's easy. Hindsight's 2020. At the time, it was great. At the time, the energy around it, and this is even before I joined. When I was at Google, you have to understand, everybody should understand that when Google is in a market, and I'm talking about Toronto, Chicago, Seattle, the markets that I was looking after, Montreal, Madison, Wisconsin, Portland, Oregon, every time we were looking to grow, Google's looking at the best buildings, the best properties, and wants to work with the best landlords, and, wants to get leasing, and we were always bumping into WeWork, who was also trying to lease a couple floors in the building, and they were kind of everywhere, and they were smart about where they were going. They were smart about where they were looking. They were smart because we knew we were smart to some extent at Google.
Sure.
And so we knew that we were looking at good buildings. We knew that we were looking at the best properties. And all of a sudden we were always kind of like, well, WeWork's looking at these floors. And we're like, well, okay. I think Google probably had an advantage in those discussions with the landlord if it was between us and them. But nevertheless, WeWork was there.
Yeah.
We're kind of present. We were also starting to work with them on a couple things. Flexible office solutions. Their enterprise product was improving, and we needed that at times. We needed to be in a place for a year while another place, a more strategic location, was being built, while we were evaluating our needs. Having a flexible, useful, functional office that we could get in and out of in a shorter period of time was really a benefit to us. And so, we were interacting with them quite a bit. And so it wasn't just like, oh, WeWork's a cool brand and they're, pre-IPO and they're all this and that, let's go check it out. They were really doing some really good, smart, and interesting things in the marketplace. And as they were developing their kind of B2B enterprise product, that's where I went to work, and that's where I felt that was a really, really strong opportunity for them to really expand growth, expand revenue, and make relationships with really stable clientele that could, really create this basis for revenue and cash flow that could then, help with the more ambitious kind of the other sort of creative things that they were working on that maybe were higher risk. So I thought that it was a good model. The culture's the culture. You watch the videos, you watch the, the movies and stuff, and everyone's like, oh, what a crazy bunch. It was young people at a startup, talented people, smart people at a startup company having a good time, and if you and the CEO having a good time, but everybody was on board. You were building a culture of people that were collaborating, people that were loyal to the brand, people that were engaged. And so I have that, you can say what you will about that type of culture building, but it's something. It is what it is. They did. Yeah. If you look at the tech industry in the 90s and you look at Google in the early 2000s, you're going to see a lot of parties, and you're going to see a lot of people, getting together and doing fun things on a social level outside of work that are meant to be culture building.
Yeah.
effective as culture builders, and I think WeWork was doing that. What they were doing on the financial side, what they were doing with their economics and their reporting, and what they were doing with that, I had no connection to that. I will say that I liked the business model. I liked what they wanted to do. I liked where they were going. I liked that I kept bumping into them out in the marketplace. And I liked the people that they were bringing over. They were bringing over a lot of talent. I think they were using their sort of the profile at the time to bring talent over from different companies. And I think there was a lot of really good things happening there. There were just a lot of good things. And so, then when you get in, you say, okay, in hindsight, you say, oh, maybe I could have seen that, maybe I could have seen that, maybe I could have seen that. But that's not what you're looking for when you join a place. You're looking for all the positives. It's rose-colored glasses and you're on board too. And so, again, positive things about what they were doing, what they were trying to build, the way that they were trying to, build their culture, and also the business model. But, and the other part of it, I don't have no comment on, but I'll say good things about some of the people and some of the process and some of the cultural things that were going on there. And again, everybody's going to make their own judgments and draw their own criticisms. But I will say that you shouldn't say, "Oh my gosh, there were people that were camping and partying and doing that." It's like, well, welcome to like a well-funded startup. Like, I think that if you were to kind of go and look at startups throughout history that had that type of profile and had that type of funding and had that type of reputation, you're probably going to see a lot of the same thing. And you can have WeWork as the scapegoat, but for me it was culture building and it was working to some extent.
Yeah. I think I could ask 10 more questions about that. Just quickly, do you see a gap in the market right now for a similar business plan?
Yeah. I mean, I think flexible real estate, flexible markets. Totally. The old equation of the 5-year office lease or the 10-year office lease. With the way the companies are evaluating their needs for office space, the scrutiny around large commitments, long investments, big liabilities. I think that having flexible solutions is always going to be good. And I think you're still seeing WeWork. They're still out there. Their brand is still on monument signs. IWG is doing fine. There are still some offshoot spaces and smaller spaces in local markets that are doing fine. I've moved a couple of my groups in Asia Pac into smaller local co-working spaces, and they love it.
Yeah.
We're upgrading spaces. In those cases, I'm taking a sales team from what used to be kind of a sales/distribution site, which has a warehouse, and it's kind of in a crummy, like not the best neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of an old kind of concrete tilt-up made for flex use. And I'm moving them into downtown office, which is brand new, great finishes, great services, great everything. I'm getting 1 and 2 year leases or 1 and 2 year deals done, and I'm kind of cost neutral. And for them, there's a quality upgrade. There's a brand identity upgrade. Mm-hmm. There's a utilization usability upgrade, and so that's just when I'm talking about my example, which is extreme because I'm taking them out of a flat-use warehouse strip mall type of space and moving them into a downtown office building. And they're like, I can't believe that we haven't done this before. I'm like, well, we didn't do it because we're stuck in a lease. So, there's a place for it. I think there's a place for co-working. I'm still a customer of co-working, and I think that it's a good model. Again, it's a good model. Like, it can work, especially if you develop enterprise relationships with good companies who are always needing stuff. The extent to which now that companies are growing and need that like growth in office is a whole different conversation. Like, oh, we're growing, so we need to be I need to put 100 people in a space for a year while we deliver our next building. That was the conversation we were having with them in 2016, 2017, when we were actually growing and we needed that thing. Now, our company's growing their office footprint. Now, that's a whole different question. Huge amount of debate and conversation about that, but I still think there's a place for it for sure. Yeah,
me too. Okay, so tell us what surprised you most about managing real estate for life sciences versus, your time at Google.
It's very much process driven. Not the real estate, the transaction, project management, delivery process, but what you're building a space for. You're building a space to support very, very, very detailed processes, very technical process. I touched a little bit of this in my time at Apple. Building labs, building R&D facilities, building distribution facilities, building something that's very purpose-filled. The soft science of building a human-centric workplace like at Google. The soft science of trying to kind of balance needs and wants of a demanding user group, individual human being user group, and taking into account individual needs and wants, and having those be part of how you approach design versus, hey, we need to manufacture XYZ amount of this, we need to, have this amount of lab tables, and this is what we're doing, very metrics based, very function based design when you're talking about a lab or manufacturing facility. You're looking for a whole different category of space. The feedback that you're getting from the user group is much more technical. It's much less, I call it soft, meaning like, well, I like views. Okay, great. I will try to get everybody views. I like, the air quality good. Okay, we'll try to get I like green instead of blue. Okay, we'll try to get you more green instead of more blue, more plants instead of less concrete, whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's soft. That in like, does this work? Can we get it out? Can we get it? Can we get raw materials in the back door and finished products out the front door? And how does that process work in this building? And what do you need to add to this building to contribute to that sort of the most efficient process? So working with manufacturing teams, working with the R&D teams, working with the technical teams who can kind of spell out their requirements and trying to make the space around that very much more hard. Like the edges are a little sharper around like how you need to deliver space, how you need to select space. So certainly that, being much more technical. Cost is a big deal, managing cost, manufacturing is cost driven, margins are narrower, as opposed to, tech office for a company like Google, where anyway, I won't say too much, but there's just a little bit less, you have a little more money to spend. How about that?
Yeah.
It's not that we don't spend money on building a manufacturing facility. The money is significant amounts of money, but it has to really be like tied to the output and tied to future revenue, tied to so it is quite different. There's a different approach, different mindset, different everything. So and I joke with people that you do get spoiled working at a company like Google for as long as I had, and having that kind of be part of your DNA, because it's not a conversation that a lot of people want to hear about, dollars per square foot for office, like the quality, the finishes, the the amenities, the things like that. It's that's still baked in my head. I'm still a user experience guy. I'm still an end user. I'm still a person first person, and that's baked into the way that I approach design and even site selection. But everybody's like, well, okay, as long as you can get it within this cost. I'm like, oh no, I can't do that.
Yeah, right. I know.
So it's an interesting conversation. I would caution people who are moving from tech into some other thing to make sure they kind of are ready for the blank stare of like, okay, like, buddy,
Right.
So yeah, that's the difference, yeah.
For sure. Okay, so what did you learn about urban campus development in Seattle that still, well, you literally just answered that question, but if you want to like continue down that path, like that still influences your strategy, right? I mean, you just have certain parameters now that you didn't have before, but you still bring a unique perspective.
I think so. I think that you still want to, like, there's still a notion of quality end user experience that has to go with everything. Stuff has to work, stuff has to be efficient. You want your people to be happy in a place where people have to come to work, which is a manufacturing facility, which is an R&D lab. Office obviously is changing. Your tech worker can, your salesperson, your finance support team, your legal, those things are all changing because people are gravitating towards a little bit more sort of hybrid work from home. But the people who have to come in to oversee quality control, to oversee manufacturing processes, to kind of, again, mix the test tube, pour this test tube into that test tube. Like it's that, that's a hands-on thing that's done inside of the lab, that's done inside the brick and mortar space. And you have to be chasing quality in that regard. You want the air quality to be good. You don't want the systems to be super noisy or disruptive. You want everything to be balanced and good, and that the place where they do sit is comfortable, and that the environment they have is nice, that there is windows, that when you can get them, that you have natural light. When you can get it, you have some plants and some biophilia. You do try to kind of take those things, that your location is accessible to public transportation, that your location is convenient for people to get to on a daily basis, and that it makes sense among partner in the industry, that you're not a manufacturing space, and that that you're next to others, that the infrastructure of the city helps that. So quality means some different things between the two industries, but there are still many boxes to check for quality, and that you don't have to. It's in my mind, and I think in people's mind that I work, like, quality is important. It's important to me because I learned that quality was paramount in my time at Google. And so when I layer that into now, I say, well, okay, but what about this? What about this? What about this? And the good thing is, not to belabor the point, but the market is still pretty soft for any type of commercial real estate. Everywhere I've been, every place I've gone, I'm seeing that markets are still pretty soft, and they want good credit tenants, and they want occupancy, and they want rent revenue. So you can pick and choose a little bit and kind of press towards quality and press your rate so that you can get value for that quality instead of just paying out, the premium just to get, in a good neighborhood. There's a lot of vacancy, and you can quality a little bit without trading away like the economic value. So anyway, I mean, I think that those things do factor in. Yeah.
I'm curious so obviously because of marketing and because internet, like AI is just freaking everywhere. It's all anybody's talking about. But I think the reality of it, like changing our lives, is real, but it's going to be a lot slower than what people say. So I'm curious about your perspective on that, both from like what you're seeing in the biotech industry and what you're seeing in our industry. Like, do you see changes happening yet, or what about that for you?
I'm such an old hat. I know it's there. I know my kids use it to help do research, their schoolwork,
Right? Yeah.
or to help with their schoolwork, or to give them guidance and direction as they do their schoolwork. I think it's amazing. I ask it questions about what I was in the market for a car. I was like, should I buy this car or that car? And it just tells you the good things about both cars. It doesn't make the decision for you. I don't want to get on and on about how I think it's hard to say. I think that real estate is still a brick and mortar industry, and it's a brick and mortar process, and it's a human process. Financial analysis, market analysis, AI can certainly help with that. Design, AI can help with a lot. I saw that in a new office that we did in Hong Kong. It's like, well, what are the square footage? What are the parameters? Let me see the space. They take some pictures of the vacant interior of the space, and all of a sudden you have a prototype interior. It looks pretty darn good. You're like, oh wow, let's start from there. You've skipped the whole, you've almost skipped schematic design at that point, and that's the whole thing. But that carves out a little bit of art. So architecture and design firms should definitely be looking at AI, not only as a benefit, but also as a maybe a little bit of a threat.
Agreed.
Banking, finance, yes. Law, no. Like, that's still really soft. Real estate, it's tough. What do you think? I don't know. Like, I don't know when I'm talking about portfolio, site selection, portfolio management, like portfolio strategy for internal corporate real estate people like me, in-house, working for their company, working for various business units and kind of discussing and pursuing their needs. I don't know. I really don't know. It's hard for me to say. I'm trying to talk around the fact that I really don't know what to say about AI, except for, I don't use much of it.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I was just curious. And I think about it from the biotech perspective. It seems like it could bring some real breakthroughs that could be totally life-changing over time.
Oh, I hope so. Yes.
Humans.
I think in that regard, yes.
Yeah.
In biotech, but I think in any manufacturing design process where multiple variables and massive amounts of data are contributing to, correlations and conclusions, the more you can process, the faster the better. And I think it's amazing in that regard. Yes. So hopefully AI helps us grow. That's a good point. Yes. Yeah. If AI helps my company grow through innovation and through product development, then the real estate side is obviously going to be, benefiting it on a secondary basis. Yeah, 100%.
Well, I have a new co-founder since last I spoke with you, who is going to be building the AI layer into Aedifico. And so some of that we're a little bit stealth about, so I won't share all of that. But I think essentially you can just kind of think of it as you're going through any process, you start to identify what areas AI agents could potentially do the work and where you need a human touch, and how that process, kind of can condense for the human over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think our industry is absolutely full of of those kinds of opportunities.
Absolutely.
Right?
No,
So
I agree.
I'm really excited about it.
Good. I need to get a little smarter on it, and I need to kind of get on paddle into that wave, instead of
Well, you'll get there.
Old man bah humbug about computers. No, I'll paddle in. We'll get in there.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay, so tell me about, what does success look like in your role? Like what's a win, and you've been behind the scenes and made all of these cool things happen. So
Yeah, I
success
mean,
is
it's different now. I mean, right now, a win is value, like getting value for the company. If you're saving costs and delivering quality, solving a problem, but not by throwing money at it. Solving money by bringing money
Yeah,
out of that process. Like,
that's
hey,
good.
I've solved
Yeah.
your problem and I've saved you some money, or I've solved your problem and we've stayed cost neutral. I think that's a lot of what's going on. Like, I think industry, like all across industries, there's a lot of just saying, hey, cost is an issue. So success is still always problem solving, but the characteristic of the problem solving is problem solving with a cost element involved. Problem solving with a financial component that is benefiting the company, and where our profile, the real estate department's profile as a cost, is kept as small as possible or is kept as efficient as possible, and the money that we do spend is very, very, very well justified and substantiated. So yeah, no, a win these days is winning awards and delivering beautiful spaces and being that's maybe that still is for Google. I think the cost maybe is a little bit more of a part of the conversation there as well nowadays. But at Biorad, and I think in life sciences, and anybody that's doing anything that's manufacturing or R&D, it's solving a problem and figuring out how to make that solution cost neutral or cost beneficial. And sometimes that means, hey, can we take this small office and put it into a bigger office? Can we, do we have to, can we exit? Should we exit this market? Hey, our lease is expiring next year. Do we need to renew it, or can we use existing capacity? And using that part of the real estate conversation, or how can real estate help consolidate? How can real estate help create efficiency in the research and development, manufacturing and distribution process that gets us out of these kind of long obligations that maybe aren't as efficient. And so success is really kind of, obviously it's always about meeting the company's needs and fulfilling the company's mission, but in this case success is always about problem solving, and it's about problem solving with beneficial or cost neutral kind of outcomes.
This question wasn't in the originals, but I'm curious. There's
No.
this idea out there now about building your own brand, right? And so if you were to say, like, this is the Mike Nolan brand strategy, what does that look like?
Good question. I guess for me, I've thought about this as I'm kind of aging out of the hustle so much. I mean, I hope that Byron not listening, but we've talked about this. I've talked about this with my leadership there. Either okay. So what's a good question? What's the mic? What do I want? What do I want to do? And how do I position myself for that? I mean, I'd love to lead an enterprise. I'd love to, be a leader within an organization. And I am to a certain extent now, but, continue to kind of go there. But at the same time, I'm looking for balance. I am looking for, something where I can stay a little bit independent and, continue to make a living, obviously. I've always thought that this is, again, the hard thing about Google DNA is I've always thought that people should have a good time at work. And I've always thought that people should enjoy themselves, have fun at what they're doing, engage with your colleagues and your peers, have relationships with people as part of your work life, have a good time, be fulfilled and enjoy your work. So I've always been I've bristled at bureaucracies, I've bristled at, over really kind of heavy-handed rules and regulations and things like that. So, I'd love to, and I feel like that I have that. I'd love to kind of be able to kind of chart my own course and just make sure that I'm personally happy and personally fulfilled. I am now. I like what I'm doing and I like the job. I think maybe there's a path down the road that kind of has me, free from the obligation of working at a large corporation. But there's always this balance about that and the safety and the kind of, we still got some tuitions to pay. I've still got, some stuff to do before I can say completely, hey, I'm ready to just kind of spin off on my own, do my own thing and kind of take that risk. But when that time comes, hopefully the brand is creative, fun, smart, good to work with, enjoyable to spend time with, and that my reputation kind of is good enough that if I want to go out there and start, again, reactivating the network, go out there and start, calling up old relationships, calling up not like the old like Corleone, like, do you remember when in 2014, if you, not like saying anybody owes me anything, but I think when people worked with me in my time, every time that people have worked with me, that they've had a positive experience, that we had a good certainly had good times at Google, and even those were hard times where we were really grinding to deliver a good product, that people were challenged, that they were asked to be ambitious, and that they were driven to innovate, and that I was part of that, and that hopefully the memories are positive. And so, the brand is, somebody who can A, solve problems, and B, kind of get the best out of you. And so we'll see. I mean, that's good. I hope that that's the way that people think of me, and whatever that means going forward, then we'll see. But if it means that I stay at Bio-Rad for the next 20 years and just ride it out into the sunset as a portfolio manager, I still want that to be the way that I'm seen and viewed.
Totally. Yeah. So, and like, I should probably plug my own company, that Aedifico will
Please,
exist.
by all means, absolutely.
For people to do that, right? And that's what we're so excited about. And
it's
definitely we need to connect very quickly after this, so I can share. I had an amazing conversation on Friday.
Oh, great.
And things are moving.
I love it.
So it's really,
I love it.
it's really.
Yeah.
But also, one of the other things that is really on my radar, and something you said about just your brand, like, kind of made me realize this. Like, at Aedifico, it's really important that we create community, because I believe that is the future, the way that everyone is going to work, including people who are just entering the industry. And so I'm curious, what is your advice to newbies, people who are just entering the industry, about that hard work, right? And about that, like, that even at Google, when things were really exciting, you still had lots of challenges that you overcame every single day, and now you're overcoming different types of challenges. But I believe that our future generations are ready for that, but I think they're going to need a lot of mentoring. And so, like, what are your thoughts on that? You're also a dad of growing up children, so how do you do that?
Show up on time, show up with a smile on your face. That's it. That's for anybody who's new in the industry, who's coming in to do anything. Show up on time, show up with a smile on your face, and then those cascading down from there. Be willing to do tasks that maybe you don't think are the sexiest or most glamorous tasks in the world. Be willing to kind of grind out. Be willing to do what people ask you to do. Don't be willing to do it. Be excited to do it. Show up on time, show up with a smile on your face. And that's it. If you come in and if you first of all, if you don't come in on time, then you're already one step behind. Yeah. But if you come in with an attitude of entitlement, or an attitude of, well, I'll do this but not that, or anything like that, then that's the smile on your face. It's the, hey, I'm here. Like, put me to use. Like, put me to work. Do you expect when you get into an industry as a young person that it's just going to be, oh, cool, this is easy, this is easy, I'm good to go? It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be exactly what you thought it was going to be. The job description that you signed up for is just something that they can put on paper and stick up on LinkedIn so they can do it. They need you to do other things. They need warm bodies and capable hands to grind out reports, to do analysis, to take out the trash, make the coffee. Like, they need people to do stuff. That's why they hired you. The thing that you read in the job description, again, is very sort of dynamic, let's just say, and dynamic to the point of, like, it doesn't really even exist. Like, those are all just like that. AI wrote that.
Right, exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can be sure AI wrote that, because when you get there and you start working with people, it's going to be all different. So just be flexible, but again, get there on time, early for sure, and show up to work with a smile on your face, and be ready, be willing, and have a good attitude. I mean, good attitudes, hard workers with good attitudes. You cannot ever replace that or trade that away. It's the value of that to a company or to a person or an organization is invaluable, and everything just grows from there. It'll take off from there.
Yeah.
That's advice.
And I think there's something about, like, the smile that's just like, even if you're faking it, after a while you're kind of not.
Absolutely.
Because people's reaction to you when you have that on your face is like, that feels so good, and it starts to, like, bounce off, right?
It does. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It sure does. And maybe you probably are faking it. You probably are, because it's early and you're up because you got there on time and it's early.
Right,
Um,
right.
and it doesn't have to be a real smile, but gosh darn it, when people see it, they're gonna have that response, like you said, and then that
Yeah,
response is gonna build trust. That response is gonna
that's
build
right.
the good, positive relationships that you have in a place where they're not just about the quality of the work, which should be good, obviously, but it's about the quality of the interactions with people. I guess that's a little bit of what I miss about the in-office thing. I mean, although we didn't talk about that much, and I think it's just too big of a topic. But growing up in an office environment where people came in, that part of being among people is important, so that people see your work and they see your attitude and they see that all the time you're positive, and when you're not, you're kind of just go off and just take those moments to yourself. But I just find it hard, like, that people growing a career when you're not like seeing your boss every day or every once in a while in person, or you're seeing your peers or colleagues in person every day and being productive and things. It's just, to me, hard. So they don't find all that stuff factors into being among people. Show up on time and put a smile on your face
Yeah.
almost suggests that you are at a place with other people, because those are the things that contribute to success in those environments. If you're working from home, you just need to log into the meeting right on the top, right on the dot. It always felt weird to me. I'm still a pro like
Yeah.
community office person, like, be there. But yeah, no, it is contagious. It multiplies, it snowballs in a positive way, and then you start having options and you start being able to chart your own course instead of getting stuck in the thing you're doing just because you can do that one thing and people are just relying on you for that one thing. Then people start to realize, because they like having you around, they like your personality, they like interacting, and then so you get to do more stuff and see more things. So yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, it does kind of perpetuate itself.
Yeah, I since almost my entire career, I've worked for myself.
Yeah.
I just, that life was never mine.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think I introduced you to our other new kind of co-founder, VP of partnerships. And he was formerly the director of the Tacoma office for Parker Smith and Feek, which is insurance. And so he had an office and always has. And he was, as we were talking about, funding and what we would use it for, and he was like, an office. And I was like, no, because for the short period of time that I was employed and I was going to the office every day, like, I think the culture was not a match for me. So
Yeah.
it felt like, why the hell would I drive to Seattle to sit in front of the computer when I can sit in front of the computer at home? The same thing, right?
Yep.
So I think that, like, my advocacy is for that some hybrid, some WeWork version where you're Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in office, Monday, Friday, like, heads down. Because also, as an introvert and as an empath, when someone comes up to me and I'm hacking away and I immediately am like, okay, gotta switch out of this mode into like empath mode, and where I'm like really wanting to listen actively to what you're saying, is challenging when when you've got to be heads down. So
Yep.
I think it just, we have so many options that there is no perfect option. It has to be right for every company, I think, and leadership just has to decide. But
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's such like the question of, well, how do we chart? But the company leader has to chart the course for culture, and that they have to make that decision. And they have to be definitive, and they have to stick by it. That's really important. But if it is, then it is. And I say, if you're going to do the hybrid thing, I'll say this for that. Yes, 3 days works for you, it works for you. If it works for your leadership, it works for your leadership. Make sure that at least one day a month, that one of those days is kind of carved out for like having fun. It can be pizza and beer. It can be going out on a field trip. It can be a lot of things, and it doesn't always have to be during working hours, or it can be on a Friday, or But it's there's some sort of team building, some sort of activity, some sort of thing that's outside of work, because we need to take better advantage of that time. If it's not going to be 5 days a week, 4 weeks a month, whatever, then you need to kind of squeeze as much quality human interaction as you can out of that time. And I think that gets lost. Let's say everybody's in the office, it's kind of drudgery, and they would rather be at home. Everybody would rather be at home.
yeah.
And so if you're making them come in, then take advantage of the thing that is about being in the office, which is being around your peers and colleagues, building the culture, the corporate culture, and try to leverage that and having a little bit of fun at some point, or along the way, or on a regular basis, kind of forced fun, whatever. But it's still good, and it's still a benefit. It's still a benefit. Have fun at work. Have fun at work.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. What trends are you seeing right now for that kind of thing? Like, for how are global companies using?
It's all over the
space.
map. It's all over the map.
Yeah.
I mean, Amazon's back to 5 days for I think most of their employees, most categories.
Yeah.
And, Google I think is still hybrid or still kind of 3 day a week or kind of this hybrid model, which is I always thought was strange because they were so committed in my day to building an in-office culture.
Yeah.
Different companies within the organizations of their company, sales teams are being given, the old adage of a laptop and a plane ticket. Just then you go out and go be with the customer, go out, and so you don't need to be in an office. So sales teams and offices that used to be dedicated to supporting sales teams are starting to go away. Support teams. So within an organization can be very different, But in tech, software engineering, I mean that's the thing. Like that's a person at a desk, generally speaking, and that's not hard to support remotely. Unless you really want to build an in-person collaborative culture. So I really don't know. I think the trend is all over the map. I think that if companies have seen that there's a cost saving to slowing down their real estate growth, which certainly they have, their capital costs, their operating costs, because rent is expensive and building out spaces is expensive and depreciation is expensive, that if those costs are starting to fade off the books a little bit because they're not bringing 100,000 square feet online every 6 to 8 months or whatever it is across a portfolio, then that's gonna mean something. That's gonna mean something. The cost benefit of not having people in the office, not maintaining the office, is going to mean something. So it's hard to deny that. I just don't know if it's offset by sort of whatever you lose in productivity, whatever you lose in retention, whatever you lose in morale. But then even the morale conversation is different because people don't grumbling about going into the office. So the very, very short answer to your question, Mandy, is I just don't know. I don't know what's happening. Life sciences, there's a safety around the brick and mortar requirements for being in life sciences, manufacturing, some other sectors of industry are safe from like real estate all of a sudden being like, well, we're not doing anything anymore. But in terms of the office world, I think it's really still up in the air. I mean, I would like I said earlier, I would just like leaders to say this, like Amazon, give them some credit. This is what we're doing.
That's right.
This is where it's going to be. This is what we're doing, and this is what. And if they want to say this is why, it's always nice to have that sort of transparency. You don't really have to, but this is why. Okay, great. Mm-hmm. And then if you want to work for Amazon, that's what you do, and you should want to work for Amazon. It's a great company. And if you want to say, well, no, I don't want to work for Amazon, okay, that's great. Then that's your personal decision. But I do like a company making a decision, standing by it, taking accountability for it. But then in that, you say, okay, well, how are you enforcing it? Well, then you're Big Brother. And then if you're dealing with capable people and you're dealing with adults, then you have that next step of, we're going to monitor your badge swipes. Like no, I'm a human being, and so again, that goes back to the sort of humanistic part of it. It's very, very, very delicate little balance, like.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is because, big companies right now have a reputation issue.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And even for their employees who enjoy, the perks of working for a company like that.
Yep.
And so it is, I can empathize with leaders there.
Yeah. Yep.
That it's a tough place to be because the badge thing. I've got a good friend who's not in real estate. I have friends in real estate that we have professional relationship, and then I've got a personal friend who works there. And
yep.
I mean, when they decided to go 3 days a week, and I was in support of that, like he was so mad at me that he like wouldn't sit next to me at dinner.
No, oh geez.
Like he was like, I know that that's beneficial for your industry if we go back 3 days a week, but you have no idea what you've just said about like how much this is affecting my life to have to commute in 3 days a week. And now they're back to 5, and he's, and he has come around to saying, actually, I'm mentoring new people in finance. He's in finance now, and I realize how important it is that I'm able to do that.
Great. No, that's great. I think it's good that you when you do see the value, even if you're an opponent or a skeptic. The other thing that I hope people remember is that 5 minutes ago in this world, we were in the office 40 hours a week. I mean, I remember how cruddy my Friday afternoon commute was. And why was I on a Friday afternoon commute? Because I was in the office until 4 o'clock on 5 o'clock on a Friday. It wasn't that long ago, and it wasn't that much of a different world. It wasn't like, somebody invented something that, the internet already existed. The
Right.
Teams and Zoom and this stuff already existed. We're not, and humanity didn't change. Like our DNA didn't flip flop into something kind of crazy and weird. It's the same people and it's the same world. And 5 minutes ago, we were working in the office all the time.
Yeah.
For the most part. So, yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I don't know. I've always said, well, it's going to take a few years for the answers to come out. And now here we are a few years later, and I still think there are just as many questions as there are answers. So,
Well, yeah, and I think because the thing is we're not just answering that question.
Yeah.
You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like there
Yeah.
are so many others just
Definitely.
for society in general that
Definitely.
we're constantly bombarded
Yep.
with that it's like, the industry just, we're all a little bit like just, I don't know, shocked, just,
Tough one.
a little
Yep.
bit of shock on a daily basis. Like, oh, this
Yep.
is new. Okay, I
Yep.
guess we're going to do
Yep.
this now.
It is.
Whatever it is.
It is. It is. It is. It is. We're figuring it out as we go.
Totally. Okay, last question.
Sure.
At the end of your life, what will you look back and say, I'm really glad I accomplished that? And it doesn't have to be what you've already accomplished. It can be future too.
No, I mean, it's an easy answer, and I don't want to make it too easy. I'll try to go a little deeper into it. But like my kids and my family, and like what I've been able to accomplish as a dad, and as a husband, and as a provider, and as a whatever that is. And that's hoping that everything works out. So far, so good. Knock wood. Really, knock wood. Is that the kids are happy. That they're happy. My wife is happy. I'm happy. Happiness is a weird kind of thing. People talk about it as being like, is it happiness or joy? What are you pursuing? Well, it's all the same thing. Like, are you a contented, fulfilled person? It doesn't matter what you're doing, but are you seeking the right things for yourself? Do you have the confidence to do that? Do you have the sort of self-reflection and the ability to kind of look at the things that you want and need and be able to pursue them and live in that place in a comfortable, quiet, content place, content way? I'm probably still looking for that myself. But I certainly want to pass that on to my next generation. So it'll always be wrapped up in the kids and in the family and in what I've done there. I don't need to have retire on Maui and be like, yeah, they made it. I just want the family to be in a good place where they are prioritizing what's important to them in their life. I'd like to build something. Every time I drive through South Lake Union and I look at our buildings there, I'm like, yeah, they have a great sense of pride, around the things that I've done, in things that I've built or projects that I've led over the years. So maybe something, we'll see. No, I certainly don't want to look back and say, missed opportunities or have regrets or things like that. But you need to know what those things are so you're not spinning your wheels. So I would like to have that. I think that it's still something that's in this life of kind of like bias towards security and safety versus bias towards risk and going out and doing something on your own. I'm still over here on that bias. And if I kind of drift towards the middle and I say, okay, well, maybe it's time to kind of think about that part, then yeah, I'd like to be able to do that. I'd like to be able to pass something down, or I'd like to be able to have something to look back on and say, you know what, that was good. That was an accomplishment. But again, the focus of my life since I had kids was always just, and became a family person, was to try to do the best for my family and try to find that, find the best in that role and do the best at that role, and again, so far so good. But yeah, the other things are great too. I mean, if I can glomp on a good accomplishment, a good professional accomplishment onto there, and that other thing, but I would never trade one for the other. I would never be like, the kids are all a mess, but boy, look at this billion-dollar company I built.
Right.
Like, I could never live with myself.
I love that answer. Thank you for that very
Sure.
human, authentic answer.
It's the way it's saying I'm too lazy to go build a business. I just stay home.
No.
I'm joking.
You're going to be able to.
I'll get there.
But no, I appreciate that. My son texted me last night at like 9:45. He goes, "Can you make me banana bread?" He doesn't. He's 25. He's been married for 3 years. He goes, my wife puts it in a brownie container and then cuts it like brownies, but I make it in a loaf. And so he's like, if it's not in a loaf, it's not banana bread. Like, what is happening here?
I gotta
love
say,
his wife so much. I'm not gonna,
Yeah, but that's nice. That he's
Yeah.
married. That he's seems to have a life that is not that that's I don't want to married, not married. That's as a parent who is also
Sure.
that's a positive thing, and that he's
Yes.
still connected to you and still has these things and still is willing to share, and that's
Right.
again, you can take great satisfaction in those little things. Our family was together this last week, and the way that the siblings, the four of them, get along together as young adults is one of the really gratifying things, that the kids get along with each other and they communicate independently with each other, and that they plan and scheme and do things as siblings together. They give each other grief, but they give each other support. Like the fact that they've grown into like young adult siblings that get along with one another is a huge, for me, like a big deal. Like I always thought, like that's really good. Like that's good because they'll always be there for one another. They'll always have that support in place. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, with that, I think this has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, and I look forward to continuing it.
Yeah, no, please, if you've got more it sounds like you got some stuff to share. Please, I'm free.
Okay.
If you want to
Love
chat,
it.
drop a note or
Perfect.
something, or we'll do a phone call, we'll go grab a coffee or something.
Bye.